I have complicated feelings about Ezra Miller.
You see, much like The Flash, Ezra Miller has their own messy timeline that they're desperately trying to run away from, but this one is filled with bonkers illegal things where each headline reads like a Mad Libs that you handed to the most unhinged person you know. Like, remember how Ezra Miller allegedly created their own cult at an Airbnb to get through a COVID lockdown? Or how Ezra Miller got arrested in Hawaii after drunkenly stealing a microphone from someone at a karaoke bar so they could verbally abuse the crowd while singing Shallow from A Star Is Born. Then came home that same night to a couple Ezra was sharing a hostel with, issued an unprompted death threat before stealing the husband's wallet and the wife's passport. You know, those kinds of wacky shenanigans. You're probably gonna hear the word allegedly throughout this video a lot. For example, sources close to Miller allege they verbally and emotionally abused those around them constantly. There are also a few reports of Miller allegedly grooming minors for years on end, telling their parents that their children have, quote, a lot of power to them. Super gross. Ezra is also like hyperfixated on Native American culture, even claiming that they themselves are the messiah that is, quote, going to lead an indigenous revolution, end quote, despite not having any Native American ancestry whatsoever. I feel like that's a part of Ezra Miller's activities that hasn't really gotten a lot of attention, and it's not good. Not to mention the many accusations of physical assault throughout the years. You might remember one of the first omens of what was to come was when Ezra Miller choke slammed a fan, which led to zero repercussions whatsoever. In fact, I believe at the time a lot of people were defending Ezra Miller in this scenario. Unfortunately, the assault and abuse allegations only get worse throughout the years with Ezra Miller. I mean, it got so bad that Ezra basically disappeared from public for the last year or so, putting themselves into their work and issuing statements about working on their mental health. And this is where I'm torn, because on one hand, Ezra Miller got famous at a very young age, and I would like to hope that we're all continually more and more aware of the kind of trauma being famous at such a young age can do to someone, whether that's starring in a massive movie franchise or just like family vlogs, you know? It's all bad for children and young people, and I would like to think more people are waking up to that idea. So that's on one hand. On the other, Ezra Miller has done lots of bad and unsettling things in a very short amount of time, and it doesn't feel like they've really faced many significant consequences for them. If anything, I think some media outlets have been weirdly kind to Ezra Miller, brushing off this cursed timeline of events as
controversial behavior.
No, they're called crimes, actually. Burglary, assault, abuse, alleged kidnapping, even. Those are less instances of
questionable behavior,
so much as they are criminal behavior. And like Warner Brothers has even gone out of their way to back Ezra Miller when they don't have to, and honestly shouldn't. It's all very strange. And this video is not going to be me trying to convince you to think one way or the other. Really, it's just a way for me to hopefully understand my own complex thoughts about the criticisms of Ezra Miller, because there's a reason that I'm so conflicted. Sponsored by Brilliant. More about that later. How are you doing, you wonderful nerds? Scott here, and if you're not aware, Ezra Miller came out as non-binary in 2018, saying, quote, I don't identify as a man, I don't identify as a woman, I barely identify as a human. And as a person who just recently came out as agender. Happy Pride. There was a part of me that wanted to give Ezra the benefit of the doubt when a lot of these allegations came out. You know, I feel like culture, at least here in America, tends to more harshly criticize people who aren't straight, white, able-bodied, or, I'm gonna say it, cis. Oh no, I'm sorry, Elon, I said the slur. Oh. So with Ezra Miller, I initially expected all of these accusations to be exaggerated as a way of trying to take down one of the very few big-name non-binary actors in Hollywood. And that's what I initially set out for this video to do, right? I thought I would look into these reports, see that they were obviously, you know, exaggerated beyond belief, and then debunk them so we could all move on. That was my bias, you know, I'll be completely honest, but only because people online tend to lose their shit over queer people doing anything, including but not limited to just fucking existing. For example, I wish so badly for people to just leave Elliot Page alone. He's not doing anything. Transphobes see one screenshot of Elliot looking mildly disheveled and are like, look at how bad this is. Meanwhile, the only reason people watch The Bear is specifically to see this man looking his absolute worst. And I'm one of them. I can fix him. I love a project. Oh, maybe not that one though. So yeah, my initial debunking idea didn't really work out for this video because nearly every story has multiple witness accounts or legal records showing Ezra Miller pleading guilty to their crimes. Now, to be fair, most of the witnesses that have spoken up about Ezra Miller have remained anonymous, but to be even fairer, that's because allegedly they're either terrified of the backlash from Miller or have been paid off or forced to sign an NDA. That's according to a report by Vanity Fair, so I don't really know what's true, but that's just some context for you. If you want a comprehensive breakdown of everything Ezra Miller has done, including what allegations may or may not be true, iNapper made a good video about it like a year ago, but I think it actually mostly holds up. But I do want to go through one case with you because it highlights what Ezra Miller has done wrong in a single tangible sense, as well as the damage that they've caused on a much larger scale. Now, this case does involve discussions of transphobia and bigotry against queer people in general, as well as allegations of grooming and abusing minors. So if you are not in the mood for any of that, you can skip to the next section in the video. So back in 2016, Ezra Miller was protesting the Dakota Access Pipeline, which, to be fair, was a cool thing to do. Good job in this one exact instance. We don't like that pipeline. I have a map here on the wall, but you can't see the Dakotas, but it's there. Unfortunately, it was at these protests that Miller met a 12-year-old Native American child activist named Gibson Iron Eyes. They went by a different name at that time, but I'm not sure if it's a dead name, so I'm just not gonna say it anyway. I only bring it up because their parents use Gibson's previous name a lot, so I changed it in some of the quotes that I'll read. But yeah, that was 2016. Cut to 6 years later, and allegedly Ezra Miller has been in constant contact with Gibson this entire time. Again, since Gibson was 12 and then just turned 18 in 2022. Tons of red flags. As a side note, I think it's here with Ezra's relationship with Gibson Iron Eyes that it does seem to be the start of their infatuation and potential appropriation of Native American culture, because multiple bad things can happen at the same time. Ezra and Gibson have been traveling together a bunch ever since, and Gibson's parents have accused Miller of grooming their child and have tried to get what's effectively a restraining order against Miller to prevent them from, interacting with Gibson. The parents also claim that, quote, Ezra uses violence, intimidation, threat of violence, fear, paranoia, delusions, and drugs to hold sway over a young adolescent Gibson, end quote. They're basically accusing Ezra Miller of kidnapping Gibson. And Ezra didn't really help with this situation. In fact, they only made things worse by posting memes to Instagram about how the authorities would never find them or Gibson. Remember that? Remember when Ezra Miller was accused of grooming and kidnapping, and then their response was to post memes about it? About how no one can find them? Like, I know the Flash's whole thing is running, but I didn't think Ezra would take it to heart that much. To be clear, it's not just Gibson's parents making these accusations. There are also other sources closer to Miller who say that they have created a relationship of severe dependency where Gibson is forced to rely on Ezra for everything from food, shelter, and transportation, basically everything. So just more red flags. So many. However, Gibson did release a statement or a couple statements on Instagram saying that their parents' allegations, quote, hold no weight and are frankly transphobic, and based in the notion that I am somehow incapable of coherent thought or opposing opinions to those of my own kindred worrying about my well-being, end quote. So yeah, like flying contrary to what the story has been so far, Gibson explains that the most emotional and psychological manipulation they've faced was when they were living with their parents, not Ezra. I have no way of knowing the full situation, but I want to stress that out of everybody in this story, Gibson Iron Eyes is the only one that I actually care about. This is just my opinion, but it feels like Gibson was already in a bad scenario with their parents, and it seems like Ezra may have taken advantage of that to put them in a different bad scenario. But that's just my read on it, and either way, I really hope that they are in a good place or can get to one soon. Now, the transphobic comment is of note because Ezra Miller is non-binary and trans, and I believe Gibson is too, so I do believe them when they say their parents are transphobic, because in most interviews, Gibson's parents don't respect their new name or pronouns or gender or anything. The parents, and this is really gross, so bear with me, but Gibson's parents have even accused Miller of using the fact that Ezra is trans as a manipulation tactic to get out of trouble. So, like, in other words, if Ezra Miller gets into some commotion, a kerfuffle, what have you, instead of recognizing that they need to be held accountable for their actions, instead they start calling everyone around them transphobic and saying that, you know, holding me, Ezra Miller, accountable is actually transphobia. That's what the parents claim. Like, even casting doubt sometimes on the notion that Ezra Miller is even trans and is really just trying to use it as a way to get out of trouble. And again, that's super gross. I hate that someone would think that. I hate that someone would accuse someone of doing that. If someone says that they're trans. I believe them. Why would I not? Like, going through all of this research, I'll admit, I don't really like Ezra Miller, but I would never, ever, ever accuse them of just making up the fact that they're trans. That's like the same disgusting mindset that people have when they're like, oh, you don't have to respect someone's pronouns if they're a bad person. No, you can still do that. You can criticize someone and also respect their identity. It's actually really not hard to do. I've been doing it this whole video. I'm not looking forward to reading the comments on this video, but hey, if you've made it this far in and you're a nice person, can you just leave like a nice comment, please? Anytime I make a video that mentions that I'm queer, would you believe that I get threats? So this was a fun topic for me to make a video about. Anyway, my point is, I hate that Gibson's parents, or there are other sources out there who allege that Ezra Miller is pretending to be trans to get out of trouble. I hate that. I don't think that's true. Unfortunately, because Ezra Miller is the worst and wants to make things harder for everyone, there is at least one instance of Ezra Miller trying to use the fact that they are trans to get out of trouble, basically. So remember the karaoke incident I mentioned at the start of the video? When Ezra Miller was arrested for that, they started shouting about how they are trans and non-binary and that arresting them is, quote, an act of intentional bigotry and a technical hate crime, end quote. No, I think you were arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct because because you were doing that. I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that you were trans. If anything, I bet normally you kill that song because you could probably sing both Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga's part. I really hope that joke was okay to say. So, like, this whole scenario sucks, right? Because Ezra Miller's actions in all of this only make things way worse for non-binary and trans folks who, again, they just want to exist. They're not even doing crimes. Like, I know there's a whole thing about be gay and do crime, but I thought that was like fun crimes, like opposing fascism, sharing Netflix passwords, selling billionaires tickets to go see the Titanic, things that don't hurt anybody.
That was a joke. Please don't hate me.
I guess I'm glad that most normal people like you and me caught on to the fact that Ezra Miller seems to be, at the most generous, a troubled individual. Because the Flash movie took so long to come together, every time a new terrible story came out about Ezra, folks online would repeatedly float the idea of replacing them with a different actor, like Grant Gustin from the Flash TV show. I remember seeing so many reports and rumors about this, and even when the first trailers came out, people were like, well, you know, maybe they wanted to replace Ezra, but it was too late in production, and they couldn't, which is kind of wild to say because I don't know if you remember this, the Flash movie was supposed to come out in 2016, 7 years ago. I don't think they were worrying that hard about a deadline. Either way, the producers of The Flash came out and said that Ezra Miller was never, at any time, going to be replaced, even after the headlines of their behavior started coming out. Not only that, but the director of The Flash said that they wouldn't even replace Ezra if the film got a sequel. It is bonkers to me that the studio would commit to that when they absolutely do not have to. There's not going to be a Flash sequel. James Gunn is going to reset the entire DC movie universe and hopefully make a Scooby-Doo 3, please, fingers crossed. They could have easily used that as an excuse to cut ties with Miller, but oh my god, they're so committed for no reason. Like, all right, maybe I get it a little bit, you know? Like, in the midst of it all, Ezra did release a statement last year saying, quote, having recently gone through a time of intense crisis, Oh my god, is that a Flash joke? Now's not the time, Ezra. Having recently gone through a time of intense crisis, I now understand that I'm suffering complex mental health issues and have begun ongoing treatment. I want to apologize to everyone that I have alarmed and upset with my past behavior, and I am committed to doing the necessary work to get back to a healthy, safe, and productive stage in my life. Miller has said in the past that they survived abuse starting from a young age, and I know that can have a profound effect on one's life and mental health. I won't pretend to know exactly what that's like. I have my own mental health issues that are undoubtedly different, obviously, and it does make me do impulsive things sometimes. But for me, that mostly means buying tie-dye shirts on Etsy and eating all the carbs in my house to make myself so full that I fall asleep until I feel happier, hopefully. I feel for anyone struggling with their mental health, and I get that throwing yourself into your work can be a mechanism for getting through it. But at a certain point, Ezra probably should have been sidelined, right? For clarification, I meant that Ezra Miller should have been sidelined from the production of the movie. The studio did intentionally sideline them from the press tour of The Flash until the premiere, which was about a full year, presumably because they thought that everyone would just forget about their actions. Heck, I don't even have to presume. Literally, the production designer of The Flash said Miller's performance as Barry Allen was so good, quote, people will forget about Ezra's behavior after watching the movie. And that is the only reason that I have not seen the movie yet. Not just because I don't want to. I don't owe movie studios anything. I stopped caring about watching every Marvel movie, and I feel so free. You can get out too. It's never too late. But again, I'm looking at all of this as an agender person, and I don't know, it's gutting to see one of the first big blockbuster films starring a non-binary actor in the headlining role and have that actor accused of a seemingly endless stream of horrendous behavior and actual crimes. Thank God we have Janelle Monáe. Glass Onion, what a masterpiece. But look what I just did, right? There are so few non-binary, big-name actors in Hollywood that I'm clinging on to one of the three that I know off the top of my head and hoping so badly that they don't turn out to be trash. The other one is Demi Lovato, but they promoted like an anti-Semitic cult not too long ago, but so did other actors, and I don't really think anyone's faced much backlash from that. My point is, that's unfair, right? Like, how many cis actors, sorry, Elon, I said the slur again, oh no, oh man. How many of those people have been revealed to be terrible? Lots of them, so many. God, I wait for the day when we have a similarly endless supply of non-binary actors. They're out there, right? They're trying to get roles right now. Heck, back in 2018, when Ezra Miller was placed on the cover of GQ Style, the magazine wrote, quote, please God, tell us the next generation of movie stars is going to be like this. This was obviously before Ezra started doing their crime spree, so I agree with the intended message, not so much the one in hindsight, I guess. I hope that Ezra Miller can get help. I also hope that they are held accountable for their crimes. I still haven't seen the Flash movie, mostly because all of the research I did made me depressed. Also, I think ACAB includes Barry Allen. And can I tell you one much smaller thing that bugs me about The Flash? So he's got super speed, right? And sometimes he uses that super speed to like read books really quickly to become an expert on a subject that he didn't know anything about a couple seconds ago. But in reality, it's everyday learning that keeps us sharp and makes ourselves and the world around us a little bit more interesting. But yeah, that's hard to do, and super speed wouldn't really help with that. But it might help with this ad read. Let's get all the... Yeah, come on. Flash speed. Brilliant.org makes everyday learning a breeze. It's the best way to learn math and computer science interactively, with thousands of lessons from foundational to advanced math, AI, data science, neural networks, and more, with new lessons being added monthly. Oh, I'm so out of shape. I don't know why I chose to do this bit. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. I should have just given my brain a workout, like what you can do on Brilliant's course for how technology works, which uncovers the inner workings of everyday tech like video compression, recommendation engines, and Wi-Fi. I've never even thought to ask that before, because I guess I just sort of take it for granted, but how does Wi-Fi work? I mean, you can't just be like there's internet in the air. right? Am I breathing it in right now? If I hold my breath, can I stream a movie faster? Speaking of faster, I think I just got a second win.
Why did I wear jeans for this?
Look, all right, you can try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free with a 30-day trial that you can get by visiting brilliant.org/nerdsync. Link is in the description. But only the first 200 of you will get 20% off of Brilliant's annual premium subscription. So if you want that deal, you're going to have to... Oh, no. Okay. You're going to have to act fast. I can't breathe. There's too much Wi-Fi in the air. I think I didn't have time to finish the Brilliant course. Tragically, Scott died during the filming of this ad. But even in his final moments, he wanted you all to remember that the first 200 people to go to brilliant.org/nerdsync for your free 30-day trial will get 20% off of Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Links in the description. It's a weird ad. This was a mess of a video that I wrote and rewrote about a dozen times and then also just ad-libbed a bunch of stuff in the middle of. So thank you so much for watching all the way through. I will link to some other videos in the description from other creators that go into more depth about each individual allegation that is against Ezra Miller if you want more context. Once again, my name is Scott, reminding you to explore your favorite art through curiosity and vulnerability. See ya.